Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Taylor, and I, the advocate of the devil. Before wrapping this sweet-looking ducky tie around my neck and defending the undefendable, I went by a different name, the Ass Clown King. I was loud, abrasive, a complete and total douche nozzle. So basically the same as I am now, except without a script. It wasn't pretty. Don't look it up, and definitely don't look in the description for a link to that old channel. I bring this up because I've always felt a certain link between myself and other figures of royalty. It's arrogant, but it's also how I feel. Don't judge me. One of my favorite kings of all time isn't even a human one. No, he's the main event. He'll sink his claws into you. It's a hell of a tale. If I'm lying, I'm dying. The Lion King! Oof. But here's the thing. Most people have it all wrong. The best king in that movie wasn't Mufasa, and as sure as shit wasn't Simba. Today, I'm defending Scar. Now that is one hell of a statement to make, right? How can Scar even think to compete with the two actual kings that are in this movie? After all, Mufasa was voiced by Darth freaking Vader, and Simba by the worm guy from the 90s Godzilla movie.
Dr. Nico Topopopoulos. It's the Topolis.
Well, actually that's quite simple. See, throughout the movie, we see Mufasa and son frolicking around Pride Rock explaining the intricacies of life and death. Absolutely brilliant foreshadowing on Disney's part, by the way. But that's pretty much it. We hear about a dark, shadowy place that Simba is expressly forbidden from ever entering, and naturally the arrogant little hellcat flat out ignores his father.
I can do what I want, bitch.
The point here is rather simple. We never see them actually do anything. Instead, we see Mufasa bully a trio of hyenas into submission, even though Simba was, for all intents and purposes, trespassing on their land, crossing an illegal border. The little cub, well,
You deliberately disobeyed me.
He also dances around all happy about being next in line to rule the land, essentially wanting his father to kick the bucket so that he can rule the roost, passing his uncle, who would have been next in line if it wasn't for Simba. But thanks to a little trickery and an alliance stronger than family ties, Scar takes his rightful place, which leads me to my first main point. Scar fostered peace between lion and hyena. Think about it. That dark, shadowy place was no longer out of bounds with Scar wearing the crown. Thanks to Scar, not Mufasa, and certainly not that bratty little Simba, there was peace throughout the land. Now, getting to that point, as I did just say, took some trickery. A lie, really. And any good Disney flick needs the death of a parental figure. And once the king had a great fall... I'm not crying, you're crying. There's just something in my eye. Whew. Sorry, I'm back. So yes, Scar is the bad guy here, but it's a story about royalty and responsibility. If there's one thing that we can learn from the Queen of England, is that being in that position is like a marriage. It's until death does you part, or in Mufasa's case, to be torn apart. But usually in royal lines, that responsibility gets passed down the family tree. And what does Simba do?
Run away and never return.
Now, what kind of a leader runs away when the going gets tough? Not a real leader. No matter how hard things get, you don't just decide to up and leave. You face your job with as much dignity as you can muster. Sadly, at this point in time, Simba hardly has any dignity at all. Luckily for the animal kingdom... Kingdom! I didn't even realize that until now. Luckily, Scar, being Mufasa's brother, is also a member of the family and thus eligible to be king. Hell, it would have been him had Simba never been born. But yes, he is the bad guy, the villain.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And it took the murder of the present king to create an opportunity for Scar to take that crown for himself. So he climbs up the top of the gorge and throws Mufasa down into the stampede of wildebeests. That would still keep Simba alive though. So what does our defendant do? He makes like most of the politicians of the real world and lies his ass off. And it works. For years, Simba is out of the picture to allow a real leader to run things for a while. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be a Disney movie without some kind of heroic return on the part of the character taking up the most room on the DVD box art. And under normal circumstances, this is where the antagonist is overpowered and outnumbered. Which brings me to my final and most important point. Because this is the point where most villains would backpedal, or retreat outright. In one case, the villain turns themselves into a giant black dragon, but this isn't that story. Instead, Scar stands up straight, looks Simba dead in the eye, and gets him to take the blame for the death of Mufasa.
Tell them who is responsible for Mufasa's death.
I am. That takes a metric ton of testicles to be caught dead to rights, have the rightful heir to the throne show up right in the middle of your reign, and not falter. Where most villains in the greater Disneyverse would have stopped right there, Scar proves his worth where most would fall. Of course, by the end of the movie, the truth is revealed and Scar is eaten alive by the very animals he allied himself with to get into power in the first place. But in my mind and my heart, Scar will always be the one true Lion King. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, I do hope I managed to shed some light into why Scar was the very best candidate for ruler of Pride Rock. Whether it be in the peace he orchestrated between Hyena and Lionkind, or even in the selfless way he stood in as interim king while Simba was off Hakuna Matataing, Scar was a leader we could all look up to and adore. And when the time came, when Simba finally got off his ass and went back home, Scar differentiated himself from all the other villains by sticking to his guns and refusing to back down. Hell, that's a trait that most heroes have trouble with at one time or another. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for a new piece of my mind every Wednesday. And let your verdict be heard in the comments below. Do you have a villain you'd like me to defend, or maybe one last pun for some reason I didn't actually say? By all means, let your views clash with my own, so that I may proceed to prove you wrong.
I drink, and I know things.
But for now, in the case of Scar, the defense rests.
Come on, you can do a couple of bars.
I know it sounds sordid, but you'll be rewarded when at last I am given my dues, and injustice deliciously squared.